Hello and welcome back to another vintage inspired video. I thought in honor of the Halloween season that we should take a step into some classic horror film history. Today in in South Pasadena, I am going to take you along on the filming locations tour to one of my favorite classic horror films, the slasher film that started it all, and that is the original Halloween from 1978, starring, of course, the Scream Queen herself, Jamie Lee Curtis. And right here in front of me is the intersection that they used to establish that we were in Hadddonfield, Illinois, and the world of Michael Myers. And I'm going to show that to you right now. Here is what it looks like today. Very similar, but here is what it looked like in 1978. It was a low-budget film made by what John Carpenter described as an army of just a bunch of kids. Made for only $300,000 in just 4 weeks, it earned $70 million worldwide in its initial release, making it one of the most successful indie films of all time. And that house on the right there, you can see that in the opening shot. The roof still looks the same. All right, now we're going to continue up the street to Laurie's house. The house looks identical to what it looked like in 1978. The only major difference is the paint job. And this area is actually much busier than I expected because there is now a school across the street. I'm quite hot out here right now. It is about 100 degrees and the shade and breeze feels really nice. I am not dressed for summer. I am dressed for Hadddonfield in October. So I think that means we should put this look to good use and go and play Laurie Strode. This house is also in the movie, but we're going to follow the film as it unfolds, so we're off to our next location. Here we are at the Speed Kills Street, which is a little bit of a walk away from where Annie and Linda's houses were, about 1.2 miles, and then Laurie would need to walk back in that same direction to go to her house, about another mile. Looking this way is where we first see Michael Myers' car come around the corner. You can see that lamp post on the right side in real life and in the shot. Turning back around, the girls would have been standing about here, and it seems to me that there used to be a tree right where those rocks on the ground are. As we walk down the street, keep an eye on that lamppost as well as the retaining rock wall on the left. You can see that rock wall very clearly as Michael Myers drives in front of it, and then that lamppost as he slams on the brakes. And that shot where he slams on the brakes would have been taken right about here. Only difference is now there is no tree to frame the left side of the shot, but that lamppost, it is still right there. That's pretty cool. The way that sun's coming through it now reminds me of when Annie and Laurie are on their drive to go and babysit. The sun is looking just like that. And then all of a sudden it actually gets really dark. It's like they were driving for a very long time. The ivy that you see in this scene, it's still here, just maybe not as much as there was during the time of filming. And then they just continue on down the street to Linda and Annie's house, which is where we're going next. And look at that retaining wall on the right. I think it's the same one from the film, only it was white back then. This is a pretty good hedge behind me, and honestly, this neighborhood is full of them, but I'm going to take you to see one of the most famous hedges in all of film history, and it is right over here. Before we get that view of Michael Myers, we see Linda running up to her house, which is right here, and the girls come walking towards us from this direction. Annie is going to confront him. Let's see if he's there. Hey, creep! Nope. It's not here. When the camera shows Annie, we see the edge of this house right behind her, and then the next house over is Annie's house, and you can see the pattern on the awning has remained the same. It just received a paint job since 1978. One other thing I wanted to point out in this area is look how worn out this area of the lawn is. It's because of all of those Halloween fans who have come to stand here in Michael Myers' footsteps. All right, that's it for this location, and we're headed back over to Laurie's house. This is about the spot where we get Laurie coming home and walking across the lawn, and she hears something, and she ends up stopping right in front of these steps and looks down the street to take notice of the trick-or-treaters who seem to be getting a very early start to their Halloween evening. And this is what it looks like in modern day. And then the camera cuts back to Laurie at these steps, which look identical today, even down to the same type of mailbox. Let's go together to take a closer look here. You can see the framing under the roof is still the same as it was back then, but like most of the homes around here, it has just gotten a little bit of a paint upgrade. After some interior scenes, which were not filmed here, we get Laurie coming out of the house for a nice normal night of babysitting. I always loved this scene because of the Halloween mood, but in actuality, it was filmed in April, May, so they got lucky with a little Southern California May gray. And those leaves were props, and the entire small cast and crew helped throw them and collect them after each scene for reuse. There was a little bit of movie magic here. When Laurie looks right, that is the real life street view you would see if you were there. But when she looks left, in actuality, that street was many miles away in Hollywood, about 7 minutes from an apartment I used to live in there, in case anybody's wondering. It's a new day. I ran out of time filming yesterday, but no Halloween filming locations video is ever going to be complete without a visit to the Michael Myers house, which is this building right here behind me. And this was destined to be just a memory in horror fans' minds if it were not for a local resident by the name of David Margrave. He rescued this house from demolition. He recalled that there was a lot of homes that was being torn down. There's about 6 of them, and one by one over the course of 3 weeks, they kept disappearing. Until one day he was walking by, he saw this home almost about to be pushed over, and he knew it had more historical significance than just being in Halloween, which I know is hard to believe, but this is one of the first homes that was ever built in South Pasadena. And so he yelled to the demolition crew to stop, and they did. And he knew who the owner of this home was. He offered him a silver dollar to purchase it, to which the owner accepted. Only thing was, David didn't have a place to put this house. So he said, "Give me a week, I'll figure it out." Here's where it ended up. They didn't own this land. This is part of the railroad's land. And in the dead of night, they hired a moving crew, put it right here. And luckily, the city of Pasadena agreed it had historical significance. And so it is still here, much to the happiness of horror fans everywhere. Sign that says, "One of Michael Myers' enduring specialties is silence." I respect that. You should too. Do not knock. No one is, what does that say? No one is going to let you in. No one is going to let you in. Carpenter had wanted to do more dolly shots throughout the film, but those take time. So lucky for them, the Steadicam had recently been introduced, the Panavision Panaglide, and they used this to great effect for that opening scene at young Michael Myers' house. So obviously the house is in a different location, but if we were to think of that opening scene with little Michael Myers after he comes out, the knife in hand, he would have been kind of about this distance. Also, if you look right there, it's just a giant skeleton, and that is because there is a gallery right on the other side of the Michael Myers house, and they specialize in horror-related art. It's something interesting to note. Michael Myers' house would have been right up this street, the hardware store, that he steals the mask, and the rope, and the knife. It's right over there, on the corner. that red brick building. Right there. That's the Michael Myers house. The original location was right over here, where these new condos now stand. For a really long time after the demolition, which was around 1987, this lot sat empty for many years. After Laurie puts the key under the mat at the Myers house, she continues down the street. So I couldn't say for sure where exactly on this street the Michael Myers house once stood. Let's just say it was right here. After Laurie goes up, puts the key under the mat, she continues down the street in this direction. And then it is here when Michael Myers steps right in front of the frame and watches her. She goes on down the street. We're supposed to be in Illinois, but obviously the film was shot in South Pasadena, California, and that meant needing to work around some palm trees. And for the most part, they were successful, but you can see a few in the scene where Laurie is dropping off the key at the Michael Myers house. Oh well. Since I am not in my car, I can't recreate the exact shot, but the girls would have been here, and then they would have turned and stopped right in front of that building.
Nothing. What's the matter with you? Just be natural. There he is. Just be natural.
Today it's a restaurant. It looks like there are two spots where you could enter, but the one from the film would have been the one on the corner here. And the windows, they still look the same, and the outside as well. It just looks like it's been painted a brighter shade of red. Right here is where we get the shot of Dr. Loomis waiting on the curb, and Michael Myers drives by behind him, just like that car did, actually. And just one more look across the street here to show you just how close the Michael Myers house is to the hardware store. All right, we have now traveled a bit away from Pasadena. We're now in Hollywood in a very beautiful neighborhood off of some pretty busy streets. Just down this road right there, that is Sunset Boulevard. Something I love most about this film is that it was low budget, which forced the need to be creative, which is something I completely relate to. I think in this case, those limitations really benefited the final film. There was no money for a mask, so one was created with a William Shatner mask. They couldn't hire someone to do the music, so John Carpenter made a very simple yet very effective score. And the use of the camera as Michael's POV added to the overall suspense. It all worked. All right, and here it is. This is the Wallace house where most of the action that night took place. It was not used for the interiors. A different house on this same street was. And it's been very much modified since filming. There's been an addition of a garage to the left here that used to be more like a carport or driveway. That is where actually Michael Myers comes back around carrying Annie's body. There's actually a sign right here that says no trespassing, so don't do that. Okay, hiding here behind this tree, this feels very Michael Myers-y. Just next door, as you see in the film, this is the unhelpful neighbor's house where Laurie runs to after running out of the Wallace's house. This one's also a little shrouded by the bushes, but you can see that the porch is still the same. And this home was actually the one used for the Doyle family interiors. So this window the neighbor's looking out of is actually the same window that Tommy Doyle looked out of to see Michael Myers across the street. And here we have the Doyle house. I was not expecting this construction. For years, this house has looked almost exactly like it did in the film. The upper balcony made it very recognizable. So I wonder if they're removing that or just updating it. I wanted to point out something else. You can see that door, it has a glass paned front. And back when they filmed, it also had a door just like that. But it was replaced with a wooden one. However, when Laurie and Annie first pull up for the night of babysitting, you can see the glass pane door, and then in all later shots, you see the wooden door that they used. Okay, let's try to line up just a few other shots. According to the Halloween filming locations blog, and as I mentioned, the interior for the Doyle house was that house across the street, and it was the downstairs that they used. The upstairs was actually this house. So it was a rare situation where the exterior and the interior matched up. All right, that does it for today's video. Thank you so much for coming along with me to visit these filming locations to the film Halloween here in South Pasadena. I hope that you enjoyed, and until that next video, I am wishing you a super swell day, and I will see you then. Bye.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?